Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sister Sister, a podcast for spiritual baddies. We are your hosts, Ellen and Maya, and today we're going to be talking about understanding the divine masculine and feminine.
Hi guys, how's it going?
It's been a little while, but not really, just a week.
Yeah, for us it's been a little while. For
Yeah.
y'all, this is episode 8.
I'll tell us a little bit more about what this is when we talk about divine feminine and masculine.
Yeah, so the main concept is that within ourselves, we all bring forth both masculine and feminine energy, regardless of your gender identity. The divine masculine represents the highest version of masculine energy, and the divine feminine represents the highest version of the feminine energy. So you may often hear them described as like the archetypal father or mother, but there's actually quite a few archetypes that can go into it that we're going to talk about further down. But really it's just kind of trying to reach a balance of both of those energies in our lives to truly be aligned within ourselves. So if you take a look at like ancient Chinese culture, you have the two energies that are similar concept with yin and yang. It's literally the same thing, just focused more on masculine and feminine, but the idea is the energies are opposing forces and one can't exist or cultivate without the other. So you have to heal both of them and you have to work on both of them.
So, now how do you understand these energies when they're present? The divine feminine and the masculine actually exist in both females and males, although depending on the individual, each can differ in quantity. For example, a man can just easily be more in their divine feminine as a woman, and likewise for women being guided in their divine masculine. When you hear the divine feminine and the divine masculine, we want you to think about one thing: qualities. What they ultimately are is different qualities that, when in balance, can help a person move forward from a grounded, heartfelt place and be able to achieve their goals with passion, grit, and a clear direction.
So let's get into the divine feminine qualities. The divine feminine is going to embody things like intuition, being nurturing, compassion, creativity, being receptive, and overall emotional depth. So it's often associated with lunar energy and the cycles of nature and the power of creation and transformation. The divine feminine is often depicted as a motherly figure, symbolizing the aspect of life that gives birth, nurtures, and sustains it. Think of the Empress in Tarot. The Empress Tarot is the major arcana card of femininity and motherhood. It is also one of the strongest pregnancy cards in the deck. So if you are a mother, you will really come into your own and find fulfillment whenever that card's coming out. And if you're a father, the Empress encourages you to build on your communication with your children, show them your more nurturing side. Even if you are not a parent, when the Empress appears, the message is very similar about embracing your softer side, allowing yourself to explore the emotions you're feeling, and listen to your intuition. People will be drawn to you, especially those in need of empathy, compassion, and nurturing, which you are able to provide. The Empress in Tarot literally represents the divine feminine to a T, whereas like there are other cards in tarot that can represent divine feminine. The Empress is kind of like the one that you're looking at for the example.
So now we're going to jump into divine feminine archetypes. And basically, while we see often the mother being showcased as the divine feminine in overall qualities, there are many other archetypes your divine feminine can take form in. So, for example, number one would be maidens, which embodies innocence, playfulness, and new beginnings. Some examples include Persephone, Cinderella, Snow White. The second one is the lover, which represents sensuality, intimacy, and emotional connection. For example, most commonly you'll think of Aphrodite, Venus, Guinevere, Juliet, or Cleopatra. You want to switch?
I realized I didn't bring these over to this table and had to grab them. So then the next one is the Enchantress, which is represented by the mysterious, seductive, and magical aspects of femininity. You're going to think of Circe, Medusa, Baba Maleficent. And then we have the Healer, which is going to embody the power of healing, obviously, restoration and transformation. So think Hecate, Kuan Yin, the White Buffalo Calf Woman, whenever we're looking at like different types of cultures and their like gods, goddesses, and representations.
So then there's the creatrix, which represents creativity, imagination, and the ability to bring form out of the formless. So most common example, not common example, some of these examples include Saraswati, Minerva, Sophia, and Oshun. And then the next one is the priestess, which basically embodies the spirituality, intuition, and connection to the divine. So these might be like Hestia, Isis, not that Isis, by the way, guys.
The Egyptian
Very
goddess.
good. Yes, the Egyptian goddess Isis and Mary Magdalene.
Then we move into the queen archetype, which is going to represent leadership and authority and their ability to create order and stability. You're going to think Hera, Ishtar, Elizabeth I, and Catherine the Great. The wild woman, which is going to represent freedom, authenticity, and ability to embrace one's primal nature. You're going to think Lilith, Eve, Salome, Calypso, or Pandora. And then the last one is the wise woman, which is going to embody wisdom, knowledge, and the ability to guide others through life's challenges, which you're going to think Sophia, Kuan Yin, and Baba Yaga. So let's get into the divine masculine qualities, Amaya.
So divine masculine qualities, on the other hand, represent qualities such as strength, action, logic, protection, assertiveness, and stability. It is associated with solar energy, the principle of active force, and is the power of manifestation and protection. The divine masculine is often symbolized as a fatherly figure, embodying the aspects of providing, guiding, and protecting. Think of the emperor in tarot. As a person, the emperor represents an older man who is good in business and usually wealthy, and is a solid, stable man. He is a powerful, grounded protector, but he can also be rigid and stubborn. This can be a father or a father figure type, or an older man you are romantically involved with. The emperor is a hard master and has little time for fun and frivolity. God, I cannot talk today. Children of the emperor can struggle with father issues as falling short of his high expectations and can affect their self-esteem. If the emperor's tarot card appears in a past position, this major arcana card can indicate that the father figure in your life was authoritarian, and that while he had your best interests at heart, he may have struggled to show affection. If it appears in the present or future, it is a much better omen as it indicates a wise older man who will give you solid advice, which, if you follow it, will lead you in the right direction. Generally, if not representing a person in your life, the emperor signifies the dominance of logic over emotion and of the mind over the heart. It signifies that concentration, structure, stability, and focus is required if you want to make your ideas and dreams a reality. The Emperor upright can represent fatherhood, and this card perfectly represents divine masculine.
Yeah, so just like the Empress, the Emperor is the opposite in the tarot, and it's going to be the more masculine qualities. So let's talk about some divine masculine archetypes. So while we often see the father being showcased as the divine masculine and the overall qualities, there are some other archetypes that the divine masculine can take form in, and there aren't as many of these as there are the divine feminine. This is just like what I could find when I was researching for the archetypes. So the first one is the king, which is going to represent sovereignty, leadership, and responsibility. Then we have the knight, which is going to represent courage, chivalry, protection, and honor. The warrior, which is going to represent strength, courage, and protection. The magician, which is going to represent intelligence, wisdom, and transformation. And then the lover, which is going to represent passion, intimacy, and emotional connection.
So now we're going to talk about identifying imbalances between the divine feminine and masculine. So overall, when these energies are in imbalance, whether it's within yourself or on a global scale in society, some common themes tend to showcase the imbalances and urge you to restore the balance between the two energies. The divine masculine is nothing without the divine feminine, and vice versa. So I'll do the first two. So the first one and first common imbalance is suppressing emotions. So when failing to honor the divine feminine, individuals will start to suppress their emotions, whether it's out of whether it's out of fear for how people will view them or if it's because they were taught that they weren't supposed to express their emotions. The suppressing of these emotions often lead to anger and blow-ups, which are representative of an unhealed masculine energy. But in reality, that masculine energy is usually unhealed because of the lack of allowance for feminine energy. We see this all the time when looking at toxic masculinity and the ways that a lot of men are raised specifically, but note that this is not just a problem for men. The second one is lacking empathy and compassion. When the divine feminine is underrepresented in a person, they often lead toward being apathetic. You can't show empathy towards others if you're not allowing yourself to feel the ways you need to. A lack of empathy will often reflect back onto the person by not being able to create or have meaningful relationships with others.
And you're going to hear that term toxic masculinity brought up a lot throughout this, as far as like ways to heal your divine masculine and also like the triggers that showcase it. And a lot of that just has to come with how masculine energy is expressed in our society. If you're not familiar with the concept, just go ahead and look it up. But it's the idea that like men can't have emotions unless they're anger, basically. And that's kind of part of what has to be healed whenever you're trying to find that balance between masculine and feminine. So the next one is going to be aggressive behavior and forced dominance. An imbalance of your masculine energy is often going to come out as aggression. This is the idea from toxic masculinity that women are less and a man should be the dominant person within a relationship. An unhealed masculine oftentimes is swallowing the narrative of traditional values and the idea of the feminine being worthless. We see this as a constant need for control and to be in charge, and any defiance is met with angry outbursts. Then we have striving for perfection, but feeling like a failure. This is that imposter syndrome that so many of us experience. This quality is represented in people often overcompensating or focusing too much on their masculine energy. This is oftentimes from a psychological standpoint where imposter syndrome stems from. If you constantly feel as though you must go above and beyond to be successful and you have to be stable all the time, it's because you are paying too much attention to your masculine and not your feminine.
The next one is lack of boundaries. So the divine masculine represents protection and the divine feminine represents emotional depth. A lack of boundaries is often from a lack of balance between both energies, not necessarily a larger focus on one over the other. If the masculine energy is dominant, you may want to establish boundaries, but because of you lack emotional depth and understanding of your own needs, you falter on staying firm in your boundaries. While on the other hand, if you've developed your emotional maturity and are letting the feminine overpower you, You may talk yourself into trying to understand the person's side of the story, which then can lead into a lack of boundaries when they disrespect you. The other one is repression of what's considered a feminine quality, and we put this in quotation marks. Once again, we're going back to the idea of toxic masculinity, which is what society often teaches men. While this can be true for any individual, we often see this in men because of being told things like pink is for girls or sons play sports, not dance on stage, and so on. It's a continuous cycle that has to be broken within society for masculines to heal and often takes a lot of work to rewire the brain. This repression can often lead to apathy, lack of creativity, along with eventually falling into old patterns of aggression.
Next, we have struggles with vulnerability and intimacy. There's a plethora of reasons why one might struggle within these aspects of their lives. However, a lack of the divine feminine energy can exacerbate this. It's hard to be vulnerable with another person, especially if you've had your trust broken in the past, but you have to heal that, or you'll have a major lack of interpersonal relationships that allow for you to feel seen and understood within your life. And then our next one, and I believe the last one for this section, inability to adapt. Change can be hard in life, but with a lack of balance and an overbearing masculine energy, you're probably going to lack the skills necessary to allow for change to happen and accept it. Without the ability to adapt, you're going to end up stuck in one place for a very long time. So the next thing we're going to go into is unhealthy representations of the divine masculine specifically. Those are just kind of the overall themes of when there's imbalances between the two. This is going to go more in depth of what exactly is happening within the masculine energy.
So the first one is excessive control. An unhealthy divine masculine might exhibit a need for control and dominance over others, situations, or outcomes. There may be a reluctance to delegate or trust others, which leads to micromanaging behavior. Another one is suppression of emotions, which means living too much in the divine masculine can result in suppression of or denial of emotions, which means there might be a focus on rationality and logic, while emotions are seen as a sign of weakness or vulnerability.
Kind of piggybacking off of that one, a lack of empathy. So difficulty in empathizing with others' feelings and perspectives can be a sign of unhealthy divine masculine, specifically because empathy is an essential aspect of emotional intelligence and meaningful connections with others. So if you are lacking empathy, you're not really going to ever be able to understand anyone else. Then we have an overemphasis on achievement. An excessive focus on achievement, success, and external validation can indicate an imbalance toward the unhealthy divine masculine. This might lead to a constant striving for perfection and a sense of never being satisfied.
Number 5 is competitiveness and aggression. So, this is basically an unhealthy expression of the divine masculine, which may lead to a highly competitive and aggressive nature. Conflict resolution might be approached with force rather than seeking a harmonious resolution. Number 6, living too much in the divine masculine can result in disconnection from intuition and gut feelings. Decisions might be made solely based on logic or reason and would disregard intuitive insights.
Then we have burnout and stress. An excessive focus on work and productivity can lead to burnout and chronic stress. There might be a difficulty in finding balance and taking time for self-care and relaxation. And then lastly, we have a difficulty in vulnerability. An unhealthy divine masculine might struggle with vulnerability and expressing emotions. Opening up emotionally can be perceived as a sign of weakness. Now we're just going to go right into the unhealthy expression of the divine feminine, and I'll just go ahead and start the first two, and we'll switch back and forth like we've been doing. So the first one is over-emotional or dramatic reactions. So an unhealthy divine feminine might display overly emotional or dramatic reactions to situations, leading to a lack of emotional regulation and stability. And then we have codependency. So living too much in the divine feminine can result in a tendency to be overly dependent on others for emotional validation and fulfillment, leading to a lack of personal empowerment.
Next is self-sacrifice and people-pleasing, which is an excessive focus on putting others' needs before one's own and constantly seeking approval, which can be signs of an unhealthy divine feminine. This may lead to a depletion of personal boundaries or self-worth. Next is passivity and indecisiveness, which is an unhealthy expression of the divine feminine, which may manifest as passivity and difficulty making decisions or taking assertive action.
And then we have a lack of personal agency, which is basically an imbalance towards the unhealthy divine feminine that's going to result in disempowerment and the feeling of being controlled or manipulated by others continuously. And then following that, we have emotional manipulation, which is an unhealthy expression of kind of the emotions that you're feeling and causing manipulation or using your emotions to kind of gain control over other situations and other people.
After that is avoidance of responsibility, which basically is avoiding personal responsibility and accountability for one's actions. Then there's difficulty in setting boundaries, which is an imbalance in the divine feminine, which leads to challenges in setting healthy boundaries with others and results in feeling overwhelmed or taken advantage of. And last but not least is dependency on external validation, which is essentially seeking constant external validation and approval, which can be a sign of an unhealthy divine feminine and leads to a lack of self-worth and self-validation.
So how exactly do we restore balance? Well, we're going to go ahead and start with awakening the divine feminine, and I'm just going to go through the first six, and then we'll switch off. So to awaken your divine feminine, you want to spend time in nature, walk barefoot, sunbathe naked if you can, and even try swimming in a river or other fresh water pools. Do things that are going to deepen your relationship with the earth, like gardening, conservation, and working with animals. Access, fully feel, and release your feelings without judgment. Practice self-care and self-love. Cultivate healthy boundaries and learn to say no, and connect with the divine feminine through meditation, prayer, ritual, and ceremony.
Then there's embracing creativity, whether it's through dance, art, music, writing, or other forms of expression, cultivating intuition and taking action on your inner guidance, examining your wounds that arose from early and important relationships with women, explore what they taught you about femininity and the qualities of the divine feminine, practicing compassion, empathy, and kindness towards yourself and others, nurturing relationships with people, plants, and animals, take care of your world with a loving presence, and last but not least, flow within the micro and macro cycles of the day, month, year, and eternity in which you live. And now let's go right on through the divine masculine. So I'll do the first two. The first would be to set boundaries. So by being assertive and setting boundaries, you and saying no to people and things that do not align with your values is basically an important step in taking responsibility for your life. Second, practice responsibility and accountability. Take charge of your life and be accountable for your role in situations.
Next, you're going to want to examine your wounds surrounding the masculine, reflecting on your formative and important relationships with men in your life? What did you learn about masculinity? How did this guide your actions as an adult? Then you're going to want to create structure and processes. So think about where your lack of structure and self-discipline has harmed you or inhibited your success. Can you create more processes or healthy habits that allow you to be more productive? And then you want to take action. You want to go out into the world and be productive and passionate and really try to focus on those positive qualities within the divine masculine. So the last little bit that we have here is just some reflection that you might want to do regarding each. So if you want to do the divine feminine, then I'll do the divine masculine, Amaya. Just some questions to ask yourself, kind of think on.
Yes. So, first question, what qualities of the divine feminine archetype do I resonate with the most, and how do these qualities manifest in my daily life? Question 2, in what areas of my life do I feel a strong connection to my nurturing and compassionate nature, and how do I express this nurturing energy towards myself and others? Last, are there any aspects of the divine feminine archetype that I struggle to embrace or express? What might be holding me back from fully embodying these qualities?
So then for the divine masculine, our first one is very similar. Which qualities of the divine masculine archetype do I feel are strong within me? How do these qualities influence my actions and decisions? Then in what ways do I embody the characteristics and of the responsibility? Wow. Let's restart. And then the next one is, in what ways do I embody the characteristics of the responsible and protective nature of the divine masculine? How does this influence my relationships and interactions with others? And then lastly, are there aspects of the divine masculine archetype that I find challenging to express or connect with? What might be the underlying reason for the disconnect? So that's all you need to know about the divine masculine and feminine.
I also think there's other little things that you can do to feel in touch with each of these. Like, for example, when I feel like being more in touch with my divine feminine, I tend to wear like more makeup. I wear clothes that make me feel good, like dresses. I tend to wear a lot of pants and like shirts on a normal basis, but every now and again I'll want to wear a dress and I'll want to wear makeup. So, literally as simple as that. But these are definitely better ways to really understand your imbalances and how you can approach them and be able to keep them in harmony.
I think also, like, just from a psychological standpoint as well, with the divine masculine feminine, I think kind of going through that process of reflection, because the characteristics are so vastly different, it can kind of help you find places in your life that you feel like you need to be working on yourself and what you need to be doing better at, and how can you do better at that? What's causing you to falter, whether it's in like career success or not feeling emotionally connected to your partner or whatever it may be. There's a lot of ways to reflect and help yourself do better just by acknowledging what the divine masculine and feminine is.
Uh, Well, let's get right into tarot time.
Is talking ish. It dropped a card on the floor. There's
Already, I didn't even see you shuffle.
Oh yeah, I was shuffling. Oh boy. Wow. Um so
What's going on?
we've got the Nine of Discs, which is all about creation, almost being completely to where you're feeling like stable and financially well off. But then we have the Tower. There are no bad cards in tarot, I will say that, but this is a card that is hard to stomach, and here's why. The Tower represents a irreversible change, something that is going to happen. It's representative of the Tower of Babylon, which fell. So this being together is kind of interesting for a couple reasons. Because of our worldview right now from the US and the tariffs and everything are going in place. Remember, we're recording this beginning of February. So this almost to me says like big financial issues overall. Like that's what it says to me. Like you're almost to that fulfillment and then it just comes crashing down. Like, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I also feel like we all see this coming.
Oh yeah, on a world front, absolutely. I mean, just the things happening now in February. I can only imagine that like it's just gonna be a domino effect of when this releases in April,
Yeah,
March
and
or
we're
April.
still in that period of Mercury retrograde during this time. That's going to cause delays in everything and cause problems. I'm interested to see how this plays out whenever this episode releases.
Absolutely. We hope on a personal front and in your personal finances things are better and not affected by what's going on externally, but definitely take precautions, save your money, don't be spending. I say this as about myself, as I buy coffee twice a week. Um, but yeah, in all seriousness, I do think that this year on a world front is just going to be tough on all of us. So, with that being said, let's get right into Astrology Almanac and see what the stars have to tell us.
So today, Saturn and Pisces will sextile Uranus and Taurus. The major axis will help aid you in staying disciplined to your goals. You'll find conventional and unconventional methods both easy to help with making your dreams concrete. Mars and Cancer will also sextile with Uranus and Taurus today, making your energy full of excitement when it comes to these goals. Mars and Cancer will also trine with Saturn and Pisces, making all of your excitement also productive. Rounding out today, we have a Cancer first quarter moon. It's important to work on your emotions this week and help strengthen them. Then on the 5th, the moon in Cancer will conjunct with Mars in Cancer, helping you to stay enthusiastic in all of your endeavors. On the 7th, Mercury goes direct in Pisces. The delays of Mercury retrograde will soon fade. You can take a moment to breathe and plan while we await for Venus to go direct as well. Finally, on the 10th, the moon in Taurus will trine with Uranus in Taurus, which will give you a newfound comfortability when trying new things to help you get back on track.
Okay, so that's not awful.
No, and I mean, this also could be, looking at that there's going to be unconventional ways of making money and becoming financially stable for people. You may have to do the thing that you feel like you didn't want to do. Like it may feel like everything's going to come crashing down, but it's what you got to do to make your money to get your bag.
Honestly, though, I was reading an article today for work and it's saying that more people are getting second jobs because one job is not cutting it. And if that means you have to freelance on the side, go right ahead. I mean, I currently freelance, so, and I have a full time job as well. Get your money up, not your funny up. That's all I gotta say. Like, just
I'm a
keep,
full-time business owner and I also now have an Etsy shop for digital products. That's a side hustle. I'm doing side hustles on Fiverr. Like, do what you gotta do.
like, people are willing to buy stuff that will make their life easier, so do it. All that being said, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sister Sister. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at ss.spiritualpodcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell button to get notified when the next video drops. And also be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you also get notified when a new episode drops. We love you guys and see you next week.
Bye.